Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into this concept of big and small, the Gulliver Complex. We're unpacking a subconscious bias that pretty much all of us carry around every single day. It's this deeply ingrained assumption that bigger always means better. I mean, why exactly do we automatically equate sheer physical size with inherent value? Well, to figure that out, we're looking at a really fascinating photo essay by photographer and professor Won-Jin. And actually, the story starts in a place you probably wouldn't expect.
Okay, to kick things off, picture this. You walk into a high-end fine art gallery. You're staring at this absolutely beautiful, evocative painting. But instead of asking the gallery owner about the artist's inspiration or, the technique or the history behind it, you turn to them and ask this highly specific, kind of bizarre question, how much per ho? Sounds totally ridiculous, right? But as Choi points out in his essay, there was an actual period of time when this exact question became a very normal, everyday expression in the Korean art world.
So what exactly is a ho?
Well, it's simply a traditional unit used to indicate the physical size of a painting. Choi explains that during this specific economic era, speculative investment began shifting away from real estate and started pouring directly into fine art. But here's the catch. The investors brought their real estate mindset right along with them. So in this incredibly strange market quirk, artworks started being priced purely based on their physical dimensions rather than their actual artistic merit. Literally, you weren't paying for genius, you were paying for surface area.
And the direct consequence of that pricing model? Absolutely dramatic. Starting from the 1970s onward, artworks became noticeably, almost comically, larger across the board. I mean, think about it. If a bigger canvas meant a bigger paycheck, regardless of what was actually painted on it, the canvases were naturally going to grow. It's a perfect real-world example of how a totally arbitrary market metric can physically alter the creative output of an entire generation.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really bizarre chain reaction. Step 1, dimensions start dictating the price. Step 2, artists, who honestly had very little to lose financially, quietly adapt and just upsize their work. But then we hit step 3, and Choi asks a really poignant question here. By playing this game, did these artists unintentionally reduce their work to manufactured products? Art kind of lost its soul. It became a scalable commodity, literally just like buying carpet by the square foot.
Now, if the fine art market feels a little too distant, let's bring this into a much more everyday scenario. Think about your local portrait studio. You go in for, say, a family portrait or a headshot. The base portrait price is one thing, but if you want that photo enlarged, the price skyrockets. Sure, larger prints cost a little bit more to produce and frame, but the price markup for an enlargement is in an entirely different universe. We are completely conditioned to just accept that the bigger picture is vastly more valuable while totally ignoring the actual cost of the materials.
Okay, let's pivot and dive into the physical reality of all this, which is really about the illusion of space. You see, the physical size and impact of any object, whether we're talking about a painting, a photograph, or even a piece of furniture, is fundamentally dictated by the space it's displayed in. An object doesn't just exist in a vacuum, right? It interacts with its environment, and that interaction plays massive tricks on our perception of scale.
To show you just how powerful this illusion really is, let's contrast two very different environments. On one hand, imagine a young artist who finishes a piece in their studio. To them, it looks massive, perfectly balanced. But then they get invited to exhibit in a major museum. Suddenly, they discover the hard way that their art looks surprisingly insignificant when it's hung in these vast museum galleries with soaring ceilings. Now, flip that around. The exact opposite happens to first-time art buyers. They see a modestly sized piece in a gallery, they buy it, bring it back to their small commercial home, and bam, suddenly it feels overwhelmingly large, completely dominating the wall. The object itself didn't change at all, only the context did.
Which all boils down to this brilliant analogy from Choi. Art fitting a room is exactly like clothing fitting a body. Just like your clothes need to fit your specific frame, every single artwork has a specific scale that harmonizes with its environment. It's not about just maximizing the square footage, it is all about finding the exact right scale that suits the space. Harmony is what creates beauty, not just sheer bulk.
Okay, let's zoom out completely now and take a look at the societal diagnosis. We need to dive into how this impacts our everyday lives, way outside the walls of art galleries and living rooms. Because as you'll see, this obsession with scale isn't just isolated to canvases. It is a symptom of a much, much broader condition.
Choi actually gives this phenomenon a perfectly sticky, super memorable name, the Gulliver Complex. This is exactly what happens when commerce eagerly exploits our deeply held belief that bigger always means better.
It's this relentless, invisible push from the market, constantly encouraging us to equate sheer physical scale with intrinsic value, success, and even status.
Let's rapid fire through some everyday symptoms of this Gulliver Complex, because honestly, once you see it, you cannot unsee it. We buy these massively oversized SUVs just to drive on narrow city streets with totally limited parking. We automatically equate massive price tags on clothing in luxury department stores with high value. We build unnecessarily monumental university gates and towering, genuinely intimidating office buildings. This complex even bleeds into how we view human biology. Our societal admiration for exceptional height so often leaves shorter people feeling like they somehow fall short. It is literally everywhere.
When you pull all of these examples together, a pretty stark societal critique emerges. Appearance over substance. Display over quality. We are living in a world that routinely values the outward show over the inner worth. Whether it's that oversized SUV, a massive but totally mediocre painting, or a giant corporate office tower, we are constantly being trained to applaud the shell rather than the substance inside.
Which brings us to a rather powerful final thought from Won-Jin Choi's essay. He writes, "Perhaps what we truly need is not a greater scale, but one that is simply the right size for who we are." As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with that provocative thought. Take a look around. Where in your own life are you defaulting to the biggest size when what you actually need is just the right size? Finding that harmony, that perfect fit between substance and scale, well, that might just be the ultimate antidote to the Gulliver Complex. Thanks for focusing in and exploring this with me today.